Alright. Hello everyone. Welcome to my welcome to my YouTube channel. Get out your crystals and let's begin. So I was actually rediscovering one of my favourite bands, Symphony X, because strangely enough, I love metal. I'm a massive metal geek. I always have been. Russell Allen from Symphony X, I think, is probably my all-time favourite vocalist. But has anyone else ever noticed this, that when I used to listen to music before, it would always go along in my head with some sort of thought, some sort of narrative. So say I was going to the gym, I was listening to some heavy metal, I would have a narrative in my head about what I'm going to do when I get to the gym. Yeah, lift heavy weights, how I'm going to get myself psyched up to hit some PRs, so on. There's like some sort of narrative that went along with the music, very thought-based, very personal. But see, when there's no narrative, see when there's nothing, the consciousness is unformed or unbound by any sort of personal narrative, when the mind is entirely relaxed, I noticed that it fucking dances with the music. The mind, consciousness, whatever that is, much in the same way that the body will dance to music spontaneously, the mind, the consciousness dances to the music. It follows it. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Then I noticed that it has its own personality. It has a quality to it. How would you say, an artistic theme to it. I don't know if that's just me, but it's an artistic theme, and it very much has the same feel and shape as this human world that we've built. The buildings, the technology, the art, all of that. It has a very, you can kind of see how it's expressed itself. That could just be my interpretation for sure, but you can see how it's expressed itself in the way it has, in the image of itself, the image of whatever that is. I just noticed that, and the music is something completely different now. I couldn't appreciate it before this awakening thing. I could appreciate it, but not like this. This is just, like I said, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's very psychedelic. It's very endearing. It's incredible. Anyway, enough ranting about progressive metal. Let's go back to the comments, and I'm going to read and answer some comments. And I'm now officially struggling to keep up with people I'm talking to and comments on YouTube. Well, by struggling, I mean it's not easy for me to respond quickly anymore, which is fine. So, okay, so one party relay. Am I saying that right, by the way? I don't know what a relay is. I don't know why comments are disappearing, but I've started to get ads on your YouTube videos, which surprised me, because I thought you have to have at least 500 subs to get monetized. Has it reduced to 400? So I read this comment, I saw this comment already, and I went onto my videos and I saw there are ads appearing on them. So I looked into it. This channel nowhere near meets the criteria for monetization, but I think I'm just assuming that once you get to a certain number of views or whatever, it just starts putting ads in your video, and that's just a feature of YouTube. There is a way to opt out of that, to take the ads off, but I don't know how to do that, because apparently you need to have the desktop version of YouTube to go in and then to switch the ads off. So you can switch the ads off, I just can't do it yet because the computers I have in my house are old and shitty, so some of them do and some of them don't. I don't know what the deal is with that, but annoying YouTube just puts ads on your videos now, apparently. But I didn't expect that to happen, so it's a bit annoying, but I'm trying to figure out a way to get rid of them. Yeah, and I'll never monetize this account, so if I can avoid it, it will just have no ads on it. But I'll need to find out a way to do that. So, let's see. Right, here's a long comment. Is that the same? So, Dad, Son, Worldwide. Undefinable sole agency of definable free will. Inertia frame of reference correlated with the eternal cosmos floor of undefinable is the man-made time hierarchy knowledge of good and evil equations. It sounds very poetic to me, but I'm not sure I can yeah, I think I know what you mean. You're not moving in time, it's moving in you. Yeah, for sure. Correlated with sun and through matter, along with and by others. Yeah, I can see that. Same undefinable floor, we detect emerging energetic actions of definable matter, not divine. So I think by definable you mean what I refer to as the objective world or the relative world, and divine, I think you're referring to non-dual. But with equivalence principles, Einstein, you can, I don't know much about Einstein, a little bit but not a lot. You can pretend to get an infusion if you're dualistic. But I can say honestly, 90 years of self-sacrifice in the USA allowing to try and prove this one to no avail. But it's still just a subtle feature of reality that is very mind-blowing to the majority of the world. It was for my ancestors as well as then living to know it, but go to school and pretend I didn't suck. Okay, to be honest, I'm kind of struggling to follow the language a little bit there. But I think I get what you're talking about. It's the undefinable is what I would call the unknowable. And definable in the way you describe it, I would call the relative world, the objective world of the mind. It does seem like you're living in two worlds for a while. Until those kind of distinctions aren't as obvious or aren't as focused on. Definitely does seem like you're living in two worlds at a certain point on this this path, if you could call it that. There is a duality, especially after the first recognition. It's kind of like the distinction between relative and absolute becomes more obvious, because all there used to be was the relative, and now there's something else that is obvious. It's obvious in a different way, and there can be a kind of aversion, dispassion for the relative world. I think that's there naturally for a reason, and that kind of reason is, I guess, for me, it pushed me more into the absolute until the distinctions eventually don't really matter anymore. But it's very poetically written. I like that. Okay, Mary Rose Mitchell says, but it isn't just a thought that creates a sense of separateness. There is also a feeling, like a block or tension that seems to arise. Yeah. Even when thoughts and mind are quiet, there remains a fading but still present sense of a centre or reference point. Once it apparently fell away, it felt like falling into a soft void, the deepest emptiness, no bottom or sides or up, just openness without contrast, but then a sudden clamping down as a sense of existential fear. Yeah, the existential fears. I think everyone gets that. I don't think there's no one I know that hasn't experienced that going through this. I felt like there wasn't enough willingness or surrender, but that's just a reflective description. So I don't really know. I don't really know what a thought is and what an emotion is, and they seem to be all mushed up together. They seem to be closely related, and eventually, what a thought is, that experience becomes more obvious, and that tying together of thought and emotion goes deeper and deeper and deeper. It gets more subtle, and the crossover there gets blurred, to the extent where, is it a thought, is it an emotion, who knows? At that point, it becomes purely intuitive. It's not like you can. It's not like there's even a point in where there wasn't for me in trying to decipher, what is a thought and what is an emotion. Is emotion a type of thought? Is thought a type of emotion? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But there are, in going to that deeper level, like you're describing there, it becomes apparent that there are thoughts that you would never, I guess you could call it thoughts, that aren't what we usually refer to as thoughts, like the distance thing you described, the non-dual in the senses, the perception and so on. The distance is a thought. The separation is a thought. But it's not a thought like a mental narrative. It's more inherent. It's faster. It's more of an assumption. It's more of a given. It's more something that's augmented onto the sense perceptions by the mind, and immediately and you kind of see through that, but the distance thought remains, because it's kind of like a proprioception. It's like a function of the body. It's something that just is automatic, that is a function of this body mind that allows us to orient ourselves and move around in time space. Is that a thought? I don't know, but I would describe it as a thought. But it's not a thought in the sense that most people would describe a mental narrative or thinking a voice in your head or an image. It kind of is though, but not in the same way. It's much more subtle. It's much it's not accessible if there isn't a relaxing of the mind, a relaxing of the narrative, such that we can actually pay attention to what this is. And when we really pay attention to it, you start to notice that there are assumptions there. There's a thought augmentation there, making this look a certain way. but really, you can't describe how it is without that, because then you're exiting the realm of the objective mind, the realm of what things make sense. You're going into a paradox there. You're going straight to non-dual nature there, and that can't be described. But I guess I could describe everything that makes it look like a three-dimensional world of separate things and distance and time. I would describe generally all of that as thought, but I don't know what that is. The thought's just the word I use to describe it. And as we go deeper down, it seems to be tied up with these emotions, and the fundamental sense of separation is that of existential fear, death, anxiety type thing. Such a deep existential fear, such a fundamental primal fear that the words can't even describe what that is. And when that, I think we have to move through that at a point. That has to be expressed, that has to be allowed, and it's really not, words can't describe words can't describe. That's kind of what I meant when I said, if you took the me that after the initial recognition and the implications of that and how excited I was about it and how kind of blown away I was by how obvious and simple it was, and you said, look, this is where this goes, it would be, and give like a little glimpse of it, it would be, no, I don't think you can willingly go through that. I don't think you can decide for yourself, I'm going to go through go to the deepest levels of self and move through the most profound existential fears possible. I think you get forced into that when you do things like psychedelics, but you don't have the choice there. I think you get forced into this after a certain point when this recognition deepens, and it's clear that it's not you doing it and you don't have any control. It's just the way it is, and it's happening the way it's happening. And then at that point, yes, I can't describe to you how terrifying that is. Like, and it's funny that we'd be just walking about sitting on that the whole time, just never looked to see what was there, what was making us feel this way, that things aren't right, there's something not right about life, we're suffering. That's it. That sense of separation, it goes so deep, you wouldn't even imagine how. And it's so, it's a kind of existential terror that I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't even be able to describe to you what that's like. It's beyond description. It's beyond words. It's so fundamental, so deep. It's not even like fear of death. It's like fear of non-existence. It's fear of existence and non-existence. It's fear of not knowing what this is. I guess I could vaguely describe it like that, but so how did there wasn't a willingness to surrender? Yeah, so the mind will do anything, the sense of personal self will do anything to avoid this. That's what the whole thing is about. That's how we create these internal worlds, to distract us, to avoid confronting this fundamental fear. That's the whole thing. It's like, it's an avoidance, it's a distraction, it's a pretending. The illusion is here to stop us having to address this directly. And I don't think the surrender is something that comes, but it's not something that you can will. It just happens the way it happens. I think the willingness is there. It has to be there. I don't know how to describe this. The willingness is essential, I would say. But where you go with this, you can't will that. Something else takes over. Something else surrenders for you when it doesn't have the choice not to. That's kind of what it seems like. But the thought goes deep as well. You know, there are things I would describe as thoughts that you know really don't seem like thoughts. Like, that's a red car over there, and it looks like a red car. In one way, it is a red car, but it's not, and it's not over there, and it's not separate from anything else. And I'm not looking at it. That doesn't make any sense, but if you know what I mean by that, then going further and further into that is where you confront this. At a certain point is where you confront this this energetic holding that is self. It's like a energetic holding in the body. So it kind of feels like. I think that's what you described quite well there. Just keep looking at it, and then watch the distraction. Watch the function coming online again that scrambles back to a reality that's comfortable and definable. That's just keep looking at that. For anyone who's interested in this, just keep looking. That's pretty much all you can do, and be willing to look and be willing to notice what the mind's aversion is creating as a distraction to pull you back into an objective reality and to avoid this, because it's very good at that. I'm getting a bit of glare here. Let's try this. That's better. Okay. But yeah, good comment. So Andy, I'm just going to call you Andy, right? Good to hear your thoughts on this, and that A and NA clearly use the mind as a person as a battering ram, and the person as a battering ram against addiction. Not judging it, because that may be the only route for some and works for some. Their statement, always preceding meeting, I'm an addict, is kind of ironic considering our quest for self-discovery. So the whole thing about NA is the 12th step, which is the spiritual awakening, and that's what's so controversial about it. And the reason they repeat as a mantra, I am an addict, is to reinforce the willingness to accept the, let's say, identity as an addict, and then to go on to accept that you as a person, as an identity, can't do anything about it, because that's what you are. Now, the person can't fight the addiction. It's very weird, very paradoxical, very controversial, and the whole thing is the becoming aware of self as the problem. The self created the self's problem, and if you read it properly, if you look at the teachings in AA properly, it's pretty much talking about exactly what I'm talking about. If you know how to look at it in the context, with the steps leading up to the final step, having had a spiritual awakening, is the separation from that self and the surrendering to something else, which can remove the problem. Pretty much the whole thing just describes an awakening. In my mind, that's how I see it, and that was my experience with it. But in saying that, I think it is possible to assimilate that addiction into your identity, and to accept from a personal point of view that the illness is never cured, and then you just have to live with it. In my experience, the illness is cured completely. There's no continual remission. There's a cure, and that's it. I think it's possible to live in remission, to live fighting the addiction forever, but that was my experience for a long time. After this, as they describe a spiritual awakening, the illness is cured. That I'm not going to go and drink alcohol. I'll remain abstinent, because there are some physiological differences, which means, like, that's not a good idea. I could go into them in detail because I know a lot about it, but I'll not bore you. But yeah, I think that's missed a lot and underemphasized. Someone else mentioned in the comments, there's a guy called Paul Hederman who does talks about non-duality and addiction, and he's very, very good. The way he describes the Alcoholics Anonymous, the model of it and all that, it makes a lot of sense, because he frames it all in the freedom from self, not just the addiction, and then the steps after that, spiritual awakening and so on. Check him out if you're interested. He's awesome. He's awesome. He's also very entertaining. Amanda Tourette says, just curious, why do you do the recording in my car? The answer is, I have kids. That's the answer. Kids are pretty much always in the house. If I was to try and film a video now, sometimes I do when they're out, then it wouldn't happen. Because the oldest one just wants to play all the time. And if I filmed a video, he'd want to be in it, or I'd think I'm ignoring him, and he would throw things at my face to get my attention and so on. And the free time I have, little bits of free time, is when I'm travelling to and from work, pretty much. That's the reason. So if anyone else has kids, they'll understand what I mean. So Jared Carlson Ripple says, hey David, I had a question about what you told me last time about if I could just forget about everything that's going on. But you said, is that right? I think that, yes, my ego doesn't think that's right, but should I go ahead and just forget regardless of what the mind is telling me? Would I be missing on anything if I did? Thank you, David. I remember that. I think what I meant by that was, having had the insight that you have, having had the recognition that you have, and maybe you don't feel like you've had an awakening, but that's not what I refer to as a recognition. The recognition is the thing that brings us to this content. Why if anyone's watching this video who's not had an awakening, or doesn't think they're having an awakening, that's just a story you're telling yourself. You're here because this recognition has brought you here. It's already started, and after a certain point, there will come a point where you've seen too much. The recognition has created a momentum to the extent that this life, as we have been living it, that we deeply feel something's not right. We maybe hear about awakening, enlightenment, and something in us goes, yes, that aligns with a lot of my experience and my thoughts and so on. That's the recognition I'm talking about. After a certain point, there's no way back. That's what I meant about forgetting about it. Could you forget about all this subject and go back to your life and pretend that this awakening thing was just like a lot of shit, and and none of it's real? It's just an interest that you got into, and then go back to your life and it was just a phase I was going through. That's what I meant by that. Can you forget that? Is it possible for you to do that? If the answer is no, then there's only one way to go now. Unfortunately, you've fucked your life up in the way that you know it. Not you, but that there will come a certain point where, and for me, after the initial recognition, I was like, this is what they were talking about, and I know it now, and it's real. It's real. There's no doubt anymore. The doubt is gone, because it's my experience now. And in that way, there is only one way forwards. deepening this recognition, finding out where this goes, finding out what I am. There was no way back to just pretending, and I did that for a long time, pretending that I was comfortable living as a person in this life, because I wasn't. It created a lot of pathology, it created a lot of suffering, and I just couldn't go on like that. And when I heard about this awakening, as soon as I heard about it, as soon as I heard people talking about it and writing, yes, there was doubt there. Yes, I didn't think it was real, but something in me just knew. I was like, that's it. Something in me knew without a doubt, and that never left, that was it. I just knew. I just knew it. So it talked to something in me that wasn't the person, the mind that doubts, and I just knew. The doubt was on top of that, and it came and went and came and went, and I forgot about it. I went back to try and live a normal life that didn't feel right, so on and so on. But something in me that I would call a form of awakening, a form of insight, a form of recognition. Something in me recognised that, and from then, life just wasn't even as right as it was before after that, because it's something that me knew. It's something that I need to explore here, that is the solution to all this. So that's what I meant by that. If if you're asking. But is there, and if that's the case, if you can't just forget about it, if it wouldn't be right to do that, because the recognition has grown to an extent, or clarified to an extent, and the only way is if you can feel this, and if you can feel the intuition, if you can move with this intuitively and feel your way through it, then that's it. Just go for it. Just go for it. The way you were talking made me, in the previous comment, made me think that you do know there's something in the way you worded it. Something, go with what you know, go with what feels right, and it's not a knowing on the conceptual level. The conceptual mind will just get confused about it, but what you feel there, and I kind of think that you do, just go with that. Let it take you. Just let it take you. Just go for it. Just go for that. Look, and it's all right here. It's all right here, right now. If you can feel that, just connect with it, and then just relax into it. Don't try and figure it out. Just this. That feeling, that pull that's pulling you towards this, let's say, recognition. It's pulling you towards it right now, not in time, not in the future. If you can just get in touch with that, then that's all you need. That's really all you need. So Deep Woods says, yes, relative and absolute are the same. Both are just ideas. Yeah, I feel you on the not supporting people to buy the way they would expect. Did you have the experience of not really wanting to do anything as a person? No, not really. No, not really. A lot of people say that after this recognition, and I get what they mean, they would just want to be alone, and they don't really feel the need to engage with the world. But to me, that would be an aversion to something. I could be wrong. That would be a conditional recognition, the recognition of this in some environments and not others. To me, it just made everything more fascinating. And maybe it's because I don't have the option to do that. Well, there's always the option, but to me, that's not full integration. That's not full realization of this in every aspect of reality. But that's just what I think. as in you said relative and absolute, that's not a full seeing through of, or seeing the relative as the absolute, seeing the absolute as the relative. That's still a duality to me. But I do very much enjoy just sitting in my own company. I enjoy company too. So I can see why people could just sink into this and be inclined to just not do anything, because everything you have is right, everything you want is right here, and there's that contentment. So I suppose in the relative, if there was a lot of action that was motivated by lacking or an aversion, then I guess that would fade away, and it might change a lot of the motivations that might have been there. But again, that's looking in the relative. The absolute level, it was always this, and this was just seeming to happen the way it was anyway. If you know what I mean. So be a bit stormy now. We would be down to chat with you sometime too. It would be cool to chat about how the energy system is affected by realization. Yeah. It would also be cool to chat about this idea of letting things be without needing to understand them. Yeah. It seems like the letting or not letting is part of the isness anyway, so the contractions aren't even happening. Yeah, with things like that, you can just, you can just answer it with paradox. The contractions are happening, but at the ultimate level, they're not. But that doesn't mean they're not still happening. That doesn't mean there's not still seemingly the experience of there being a contraction or a reaction or something like that. So it's always non-dual. Everything is non-dual. It's always paradox. It's always unknowable. It's just like the relative version of this. The story is augmented on top of it, but that doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't have its own reality. That doesn't mean it's not real. Things can't be as black and white as that. Like that red car over there, I said before that, relatively, I can't say that that's not a red car over there, because that would be ridiculous. But ultimately I don't experience a red car over there. That's not my primary experience. That's not the most real thing to me, that there's a red car over there. Even though I can't, go about saying that that's not a red car over there. That's not separate from me. Do you know what I mean? There's, like you're saying, the letting things be as they are includes the augmentation that this relative reality as it is as well. It includes everything. Nothing is excluded. Nothing is excluded. So when I talk like that, it really doesn't make any sense. It's very paradoxical, and it sounds stupid, but that's not what this pointing's about. It's not. The idea with this is to talk to you and talk past the separate conceptual identity. Like I think I explained this at the start, when I first heard about this, it was talking straight to me, but not me as a person, but kind of me as a person as well. But it was talking to something that was much more fundamental, much more deep. I felt it. I didn't have to think about it. I just felt it at the feeling level. Very, very fundamental and primary, deep level. But yeah, I'll be up for talking with anyone. Just get in touch. Okay, I think this is the last one. So there have been reports. Relational Perception says there have been reports in the past of AI mods removing too many comments. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, the comments just seem to disappear. I have moderation switched on in my settings for this. So I'll maybe have a look at the settings and see if I can fix something. But anyway, I need to go now, and I'll talk to you next time.